Welcome to Distribution Talk with Jason Bader, the show where we dive into the stories, struggles, and solutions from business owners and thought leaders in the wholesale distribution market. Hi friends, Jason here. In this episode, I had the pleasure of speaking with Andrew Johnson, CEO of ShelfAware VMI. Andrew's company uses RFID technology to overhaul the traditional VMI and on-site inventory programs present in distribution today. This is a fascinating technology born out of his family-owned industrial distribution company. While the technology is really cool, the real story is how the solution came about. While seeking a new ERP for the family business, Andrew and his brothers realized, and later became obsessed with, the need to tear down their current processes and completely overhaul them to create greater efficiency in the organization. These self-taught technologists are what innovation is really all about. I enjoyed the conversation, and I hope you do too. All right, Andrew. Hey, welcome to Distribution Talk. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me, Jason.
Well, hey, I just wanted to kind of jump into some of your family history. You kind of started out like me in the family business.
Sure, yeah, just like you, I grew up in a family business that my dad had started. It's a rubber and plastics distributor that was founded in 1982 by my father. And I think growing up like a lot of boys, I didn't always get along with my dad through middle school and high school. So
Sure.
I had zero plans of working with him. I thought that just sounded terrible. And then like junior, senior year of high school, probably had some level of maturity and realized that my dad's gig really wasn't all that bad when I started to compare it to other career paths. And so I just surprised him one day, came out of the blue and said, "Hey, I'm going to come work for you." It was actually like a family get together, and all his buddies were standing around talking. And I walked up and he said, "Oh, my son's going to be an optometrist. It's so exciting. He's going to go to college." And da, da, da. I said, "No, I'm going to come work for you." And that was the first time that he had ever really heard those words out of my mouth. So
How old were you? Do you remember, Andrew? I mean,
I,
approximately.
I think I was 17. And
Okay,
I
all right. So
started,
you were getting to the close to the end
yeah,
of your high school career.
I had to make the leap, and I had started talking with a college counselor, and I think I had looked into how long it's going to take me to be an optometrist in school, and I thought,
Sure.
forget it. So,
And the amount of debt that you would have after the
yeah,
end of
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
one, and
yeah,
oh yeah.
yeah. So he made me go to college and get a degree in accounting.
Okay.
So I did get a bachelor's degree in accounting. I think I had like a 3.8 or 3.9 GPA. I applied
Yeah.
myself. He was happy. I came back and started working in the family business as an accountant. So I opened and
Okay.
closed the books for the first year. And the story doesn't get real interesting until 2012. So I was a couple years out of college and I moved into customer service and sales. And I have three sisters, no brothers.
Okay.
And my sisters started to get married, and slowly one thing led to another. And two of them by 2012 had shown up in the business working in different aspects of the business.
Okay.
So my oldest brother-in-law was our accountant, our controller, and our financial controller. And then my other brother-in-law, he had started working in the warehouse and in shipping and stuff, and was moving into customer service. And so the three boys, as we were kind of affectionately called at that point in time, were enlisted to put a new ERP system in our family's distribution company.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
as you know, ERP systems can be a big jumping off point, and usually it goes really poorly. Safe to say it's a nightmare for most people in the
Mm-hmm.
distribution world. And we were jumping from a really old green screen system to a modern SQL database
Mm-hmm.
system, Epicor Profit 21,
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
very common system for the industry.
I grew up
And
on it from 1988 to on. Yeah. So I was very familiar with the green screen too. By
oh
the way.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. This
So,
is a 2012, so we were
sure.
late to the game of getting onto a modern ERP system. It was a very formative time for us because we had the advice of kind of a sage mentor. He came in and he said, and just a friend of a friend, he came in, he heard about this software switch, and he said, look, from my perspective, which he was a data architect, he said, your company data is the most valuable thing you have. It's one of your most valuable assets as a company. And if you boys who are fairly tech minded and call yourselves, engaged in the business, if you boys don't take this over and do it yourselves, meaning the data migration, all the dirty work, you'll regret it. And so we said, well, we're over our head. And this guy, friend of ours, volunteered in his off time to assist us. And we started doing our very first kind of jaunt in computer programming. We wrote some SQL language to try and clean up our old data and do mass conversions. And we ended up bringing over our entire company history, sales history, right down to invoice detail from 1996 through this process. The conversion was almost flawless. The employees were all shocked how smooth it went. And it was 60, 80 hours a week for 2 or 3 months to make the data migration, go to the system, go live. And it was a wild success. And it was a pivotal point in our company because the three of us boys had started to work on the business and not in the business.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had walked away with a real appreciation in our company's data. We knew our data and our systems and our processes inside out. And that, hard, rough experience, really getting our hands dirty, it changed us. And all three of us walked away looking at everything in our business from a process standpoint and wanting to just change it, improve it.
So you said it was about 6 to 7 months, you said, before go live. Is that about how long it took, or?
No, I think it was maybe 3 to 6 months, somewhere
Oh,
in
three
there.
to six. Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I just find that a lot of people basically underestimate the amount of time and attention that's required. I mean, I've seen a lot of people, it takes them almost a year to do that conversion.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's something that, people don't plan for that I think most people should plan for a minimum of 6 months,
Oh,
unless they
yeah.
have tremendous advice like yours, or, better expertise,
Yeah.
that it's going to take a while. I mean,
It's
this
going
is
to
a
take a
no
long
joke
time.
deal.
It's going
Yeah.
to take a long time. And you've heard the adage, bad data in, bad data out. So if you're
Oh, yeah.
bringing junky data from your old system, your new system is going to be no better off. And I think another common mistake is people just don't want to, managers, owners, don't decision makers don't want to get their hands dirty. So they kind of just, they hire a third party. The third party will never truly understand the uniqueness of your data, how it's positioned, how it works together with other parts of your data, what's important, what's not important. And so, unless you get an internal champion who's willing to
Hmm.
work their guts out for the company for a period of months and come alongside perhaps a third party or just all out and out do it yourself, I think a ERP migration is going to be painful and
Sure.
not have great results. And it can also, if you do it like us, if you jump in with both feet, you can learn. I mean, I really think it's one of the best learning experiences any business owner can take,
Yeah,
and it was
definitely.
it was just formative for us.
Well, I mean, it definitely, as you just kind of said, as you started unraveling each of these processes and things like that, you learned a boatload about what your company actually did and why
Hmm.
it did it and why do I do this?
Yep.
That's
Oh
really
yeah.
probably the question that came up several times.
Repeatedly, yeah, and we often ended with the conclusion of, well, we do this because we've always done it this way, and it really opened up Pandora's box of us just. I mean, from the employee standpoint, we had about 20 employees at the time. They were like scared to death because here's these three guys, young guys who've been there for a couple years now, and obviously they trusted us to a degree, but they also saw how tenacious we were coming out of this process to reinvent everything in the company. And they knew that it was going to be painful because
Yeah.
change is painful. And so after 2012, that's what we did. We spent the next couple of years like ripping everything apart as far as processes, technology that our company was using, job duties, go to markets. And that really led us up to 2015 through a series of small inventions and some custom pieces of software we had leveraged. One of them was pretty cool. We invented a smart counting scale. So we took an industrial counting scale, put a Raspberry Pi inside the counting scale to give it I guess, a better brain. And it was able then to network with our ERP system, Profit 21. And it allowed us to we used an Android phone and a custom wireless warehouse program we developed to pick and pull our parts. And then you could load piece weights into your database, and that scale would actually go to the database, pull a specific remembered stored piece weight from the last time you shipped that product, and it would cut out piece weight counting for our small parts program.
That's phenomenal. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, as a guy who sat there and was intimately involved with counting scales, I know exactly what you're
Yeah.
talking about,
Yeah,
man. That just,
yeah, brutal
wow.
in the small parts business.
Yeah.
That little invention, which on the intellectual property side we did a terrible job of, but eventually it's found its way to Pennsylvania Scales. You can go buy the system from them today, but it started in our warehouse in Kansas City as an idea, and then eventually a beta and a rough prototype, and then We still use them today. And Pennsylvania's selling a system of their own creation post working with us, I guess, on that.
Yeah.
That then led, this is all kind of a step by step thing. It's always
Sure. Sure.
usually incremental.
Well, did you all have a background, any of the three boys, or really anybody in the company, with computer programming, or is this something you just said, you know what, we're going to learn this?
So everybody thinks this is like unbelievable, but and it leads me down like another rabbit trail because I'm kind of anti college at this point.
Okay, I
I
I,
mean, I
I
had a
understand.
I had a nice college experience. I enjoyed my college experience, and I did learn a lot. I felt equipped to do my accounting job, but
Yes.
I believe I could have done it faster than 4 years and at less expense. And so
Yeah.
what happened was in 2012 when we decided to do the data conversion myself, my oldest brother-in-law taught himself through YouTube how to program. He started with SQL, Microsoft SQL, writing simplistic strings of code to manipulate our giant sets of data. And then from there, he got into VB, Visual Basics, and maybe some Java. And I don't even know
Hmm.
what else he writes now, but
Right.
he is now a fairly adept self taught programmer. And he wrote all of our software, has written all of our software, the smart counting scale. I mean, he wrote the front end of that. We outsourced our mobile apps. We've always outsourced mobile apps. There's so many people that could write mobile apps. Our first mobile
Yeah.
app was written by a kid that we ran into on a IT forum, and we literally paid him like $2,500, and he like cranked out this mobile app in a weekend, and he was thrilled.
Awesome. Yeah, that stuff just blows me away. It's fascinating. I look at, wow, that if you have an aptitude to research on YouTube, I mean, which I think is the greatest invention ever in the
Mhm.
entire world, but if you have the ability to learn from that and to piece things together and to assimilate information like that, I mean, you can go just miles without that formal education.
Oh yeah, yeah. See, my oldest brother-in-law, he has a master's degree in physical education. Couldn't get a job as a teacher at the time, started packing boxes for my dad, and then 5 years later, he's a fairly adept programmer writing custom software and was revolutionizing our little family business. So yeah, so then from 2012 to 2015, we had a series of small inventions, a series of custom programs and applications we were running, all with the idea of incrementally improving our business. We were basically looking at the biggest productivity drains inside our little business and just addressing them one at a time. So going from department to department, making each department as efficient as it could be without sacrificing the core tendencies of our business.
Right.
Attention to detail. We do a lot of custom engineering and stuff. And so, I mean, we couldn't sacrifice our heritage. We couldn't sacrifice the integrity of the services and products we were providing our customers, but we wanted to be able to service everything as efficiently as possible. And it was crazy. It was just we would walk in, tear something down, burn it to the ground, sometimes before we even really knew what we were going to put in place. And then we'd stay up late, beer and pizza, and the next day we'd have some sort of a process that was in a semblance of working. And in a week or two, it'd be pretty slick. And yeah, that was like basically our process for 3 years. And then in 2015, we tackled our biggest invention yet, which I think we're going to talk a little bit about
For sure.
yeah, the vendor managed inventory system, or a VMI for short. That was kind of our coup de grace. We threw everything at that. And it was our first, I've made this point a lot too, inside distribution and small business in general. I think incremental innovation is the way to go. It's a good process. And you can think of incremental innovation inside of a small business as a series of sprints set inside of a marathon, meaning you want to have the finish line drawn, like an end goal, overarching goal in place for your incremental innovation journey. But inside that journey, you cannot move slowly. I mean, there's really no way if you're going to be an innovator. At times, you just have to move. There's no pause. You have to just move. You don't even perhaps know where you're going outside of that big finish line, and in the micro, you just move quickly. So it's a series of sprints inside of this larger marathon. And that was the way we had approached it the whole time. But when you're doing this process, it's almost always inside your four walls. So that's where you make a big leap. When you take any sort of invention, innovation, or adaptation of your process and try and push it externally outside of your four walls so that it's
Hmm.
some kind of a system
Yeah.
that interacts with your customers, that's a huge leap. And so,
Yeah.
really, For us, for the 2012 to 2015, everything we did was an internal innovation with a bent towards efficiencies. And then
Right.
in 15, when we made that leap to work on a VMI system, that was a very distinct leap towards an external innovation.
So these small sprints inside of a marathon, I appreciate, that analogy. How did that affect the first generation, like your father? How did he adapt to that? Or maybe even some of the people who have been with the organization now close to the inception? I mean, how did they assimilate that? How did they feel, going through that? Or
Yeah, that's something to consider
yeah,
before
okay,
before
sure.
you're gonna go down this path. Is if you go down this path with the overarching goal of revolutionizing your business, you're going to lose people. So it's a common business analogy, but you can think of your business like a bus, and you have people on different seats on the bus, and they all serve different roles and purposes. And when you're going through this process of incremental internal innovation, really trying to revolutionize your business, those people on the bus seats change seats so frequently that certain folks with certain personalities will just lose their minds. You'll lose those people, and they could be really good people. There are certainly times in our history where we've been not nearly sensitive enough to just the amount of angst that we were dragging our employees through. And we lost some people that I wish we maybe hadn't have lost. Talented individuals who really cared about our business, but they just got tired of getting drugged through a next round of changes. If you're a more sensitive person, I lack empathy and sympathy. So I'm not good
Okay,
at this. So I'm talking, preaching to myself right now.
right.
If you just slow down enough, take one deep breath to really think about your key personnel and who you want to keep post to this process. Obviously, they need to be onboarded as best you can, prepped for the changes, and also shared the vision. They need to know those goalposts, where we're headed and why we're going through this pain. This is what we're trying to do. And if you can get them on board, then you have a good chance of keeping those key folks. But there's no way around it. It's
Right.
upsetting. It's upsetting to change people's job duties, their process, how they do their work. When we got into the sales force, I mean, we went as far as changing compensation structures, which is kind of that's a hot button topic for any sales guy. And we let's see, what was another controversial one? We removed sales territories. That was a little dicey. I mean, it caused some consternation inside the sales force. So it's an important topic. It's one you want to really address. And if you're really good and you have some key folks on your kind of change team, hopefully you have one of those folks who's paying attention to everybody else, trying to appreciate everybody else's perspective.
Yeah. Now, something, just a thought occurred to me. You're making all of these changes inside, you're innovating, you basically are tearing up the processes and going a completely different direction, all with the overarching goal of really, innovating that business, but really setting it up to, succeed long term.
Mhm.
If you were to reflect back on when you all embarked on this journey, if you had not done this, if you had just kind of meandered along and continued along the same path, do you think you'd be in business today?
Yeah, we talk about that all the time. Hey,
Do
what if
you
we
really?
had
Okay.
done? Yeah, yeah. My brothers and I, we sit around and we try and get together on a fairly regular basis and go to lunch. And occasionally we reminisce,
Yeah.
and occasionally we'll lose an account, no
Right.
fault of our own, through an acquisition, which is really common now. A big
Sure.
corporation comes in, buys a company we've been doing business with for a long time, and we lose them through this reorganization process as a
Mhm.
customer. We've lost a couple accounts, and we thought, man, if we had not embarked on this new process, which made us stronger and faster and changed our service and our go to market and won us new business, where would we be? I think we'd still be in business today. It would be on a much smaller scale, wouldn't be nearly as exciting, and we would definitely not be having the opportunities of some of the startups that we've started. So we've spawned some new businesses in that process. None
Okay.
of those would exist. We'd still be, I guess, humming along doing the same old thing. And I think in the next decade, we probably would be selling to a larger conglomerate at some point.
Gotcha. Yeah, it just kind of dawned on me, especially in that industrial space, that it's very difficult for a smaller business to continue to thrive unless they are, innovative. I mean, that's really what it is. And if they continue to try to do things in the same way that they've done before, I just see them as an entity that'll go away.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to put the whole process into like the state, take a huge step back and look at the whole process and where our company was. And to give some context to all the listeners, when we started the process in 2012, our goal obviously was towards efficiencies. And then
Hmm.
eventually we got into offering new services and new routes to market that would bring in new revenue streams. But our original intent was just towards efficiencies. We had set those goalposts way out on our marathon. We had set them towards making certain gross sales marks with the same or fewer people. We wanted to scale the distribution company while keeping our core metrics, people and inventory, in check. And so from 2012 to today, my little family business, which I don't, I run one of the startups that run ShelfAware, the supply chain startups. I can't take much credit for the last 2 years, and they've done a phenomenal job. But they're on their way toward. We started in 2012 with 20 people doing roughly 3 million in annual revenue as an industrial distributor, and last year they wrapped up just over 10 million with the same 20 people. So we're always looking at our revenue and profit margin to inventory and people ratios and trying to obviously improve those every year.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty impressive. Look at that. Again, I don't believe that you all could have even come close to that mark or even still survived if you had not torn the business down and really reinvented the way you were
The
doing
way we
things.
do business, yeah.
Yeah.
Traditionally, like if you want to make the leap from like 2 to 3 million or 4 million, 5 million to 10 million, 15 million, 20 million, I mean, almost always it involves branch locations. And that was always one of our things is we think we can do this without branch locations by utilizing, leveraging technology. And it worked. So they're on their way to 15 million. And I think they have no discussions of branch locations and everybody's happy.
Life is really so much easier without branch locations. I mean, I'll tell you, as
Yes.
somebody who grew up, I had 9 locations over 4 states. I mean, it was just, yeah, it was just difficult at best. That
Mhm.
was a headache. So it really, no, I think that I applaud that kind of innovation that's allowed you all to expand without having to do that. So tell me, okay, you mentioned that you are no longer actively in the family business, but you have taken off with a spinoff. Tell us a little bit about that. First of all, that transition for you and kind of where that was born. But then, we'll dive more into the business you are in currently.
Yeah, in 15, when we wrapped up that scale invention, and it was eye opening of, whoa, we can, with the pieces we put together, my oldest brother in law's programming skills had gotten to a point, and we had started to blend different applications together with software and hardware, writing mobile apps that were kind of the user interface was a mobile app, and it glued all these software and hardware pieces together. It was the first time where we tackled a problem and came with like a really full fledged technological solution with the database involved, a user interface, and all kinds of stuff in between. And it was really, if you've heard the term an Internet of Things invention, we took a dumb counting scale, made it smart, put it on the internet, and that was our first IoT invention. So when we wrapped that up in 15, it gave us the confidence to attack an external innovation, and that external innovation was taking our vendor managed inventories that we were running at the time in a very traditional format. We had a one of our customer service agents would get in a truck, drive on location twice a week, check inventory quantities, come back, make up an order like a bread truck run, just run back and stock our customer shelves. We decided to tackle that. And we did it with a really fresh look. We did a survey of what our marketplace was offering in terms of innovation. And basically, our survey showed that distributors in the industrial space were either using vending machines, physical vending machines. They basically take a Coke machine, retrofit industrial parts in it,
Yeah. Yeah.
or they were using more or less the same bread truck runner, but the guy had a barcode scanner.
Right.
Or maybe they're trying to pressure the consumers to do the scanning themselves. So they give issue equipment to the consumers and say, we'll always keep being parts. All you got to do is make sure this barcode scanner is charged, scan everything you take, don't lose it, don't drop it, make sure it's not greasy, make sure it's charged up, make sure nobody steals it. So we look at the whole marketplace, took a survey and said, like, certainly there has to be a way to make this remote and make it easy for the consumer to use. So those are kind of our two criteria. Number one, we didn't want to be there physically sending supplier personnel on site. We had to get rid of that. No trucks, no people from our company leaving the building. We had to remotely monitor it. Number two, the consumer cannot be placed in a position where they're taking on the burden to collect the data, to collect the consumption of the product. So but we just saw that, like, after interviewing a couple blue collar guys that we worked with at a consumer location, they were interested in one thing, and that was doing their job they were paid to do, which was produce something, manufacture a pump or a motor, or do their core job. And every time the supplier would say, well, would you also please just do this while you're doing it? And it usually was, if they're being nice, they'd say, sure, yeah, maybe. And then it just kind of fell by the wayside. So we looked at a technology that had been around a really long time called RFID. That's radio frequency identification. Old tech, you got everybody uses it all the time. We don't even know it anymore. You see it in your hotel key card to get access to your door. You see it in your Apple Pay and Android Pay. That's called near field NFC. And like all things so far, we, as the brothers, we just latched on to this RFID concept and put a budget aside. I think it was 15,000 bucks. I think I went to my dad. I remember going to my dad and I pitched to my dad this idea. And I think earlier, I never really answered that segment, what my dad thought about all this. In general, every idea we had, he thought it was crazy, but he'd always give us enough rope to hang ourselves.
Okay.
And to his credit, as an entrepreneur, he'd roll the dice on us. And after several small successes, he pretty much just quit asking questions and he'd let us go wild. And then he did a pretty good job of handling some of the fallout. I mean, we screwed up a couple times and really hosed up a process or went too far somewhere, ticked off some of the employees that we shouldn't have, that we just did a poor job of rolling it out. And he helped in a lot of ways, but that was his main function, was smoothing over some of our mistakes. And so
Okay.
by
Okay.
by
Yeah.
2015, I
Yeah.
came to him and I said, okay, I got another idea, but this one's a little more grander. I'm going to use RFID to monitor inventory levels and consumption of inventory at our customer's location using RFID. And I had this whole pitch prepared, like rehearsed, pitched to him in his office and said, I need $15,000 to explore this concept. And he said, sure, I'll give you the 15 grand. Just one question. What the hell is RFID? And I had never in my whole pitch explained what the acronym stood for. And he was clueless. So he was just blissfully listening, but had no clue what the hell RFID was. So anyway, defined the term for him. And he gave me the 15 grand. We started a beta in our warehouse, launched the product, which we ended up calling ShelfAware, which is a
Which I love. I love the name. I'm sorry.
thank you.
I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
the name. I think the name's phenomenal.
It's a good play on words, being
It is.
self-aware or
It
shelfware or
is.
aware
It's
of what's on the shelf. Yeah.
very clever.
Yeah. So we launched that in, I think it was late 15 or early 16, at a customer here in the Midwest that we had had for a long time. Approached them and basically said, we have this crazy concept to put RFID tags inside your product packaging. So we're going to ship you parts, and the packaging itself is going to be a sensor. That packaging is going to be intelligent. It's going to have a hidden microchip that talks through equipment through a radio signal, and we'll install this equipment. It'll be fairly benign, just be basically a workbench sitting by your inventory. And your guys or gals that pull parts just have to walk past this workbench and look for a little blinky light. That's literally like what we told the consumer. They said, like, sure, let's try it. If it doesn't work, you'll come back in here and fix it. Yeah, we will. So we launched the system. It worked really, really well and better than we anticipated. And I think the biggest surprise to us was the consumption data we'd get back. I mean, we would see every time their workers would walk into the inventory area, which was basically a large grocery store setup.
Mm-hmm.
They would grab a bag of O-rings, a box of custom molded rubber products, a couple shaft seals, maybe some bearings, walk back over out of the inventory location. Our hardware would pick up these scans and feed us the data back to our computer through the internet in real time. And I mean, our original intention, just to get the person off the street, not to have to send the guy in to monitor the inventory,
Right.
that was so small minded. I mean, that's all we really wanted to do. But in the end, what we saw was, as the data started to pile up on the consumption, we started to see trends on inventory items. We found out that we could tell what our consumers' bill of materials were, which was kind of scary for them. So we could tell based on timestamps what their bill of materials were for some of their most popular pump and motor builds.
Mm-hmm.
And then that would tell us, well, hey, we should co-locate these parts, so we minimize their steps and minimize their pick time. And we started to do crazy efficiency things with these data points, and that's that's when we realized, I mean, talking with the consumer, getting their feedback, that the system was not only working, it was working wilder than we'd ever imagined. And then doing a broader market survey, we found that nobody else was really approaching B2B supply chains like this. Nobody was tracking commodities with intelligent packaging tags. And we knew we had a business. I mean, we knew we had a separate business that we could potentially explore the system further, mature it a little bit more, take the software to a level where we could license the whole system to other distributors. So that's where I came. That's where I found myself having a new job. Is my brothers kicked me out more or less because I've always been kind of the loudmouth visionary. I'm always the guy that's like way out front and nobody wants to follow me. I just kind of scream, well, screw you guys. I don't need you. I'm off. So they gave me my wish and just sent me packing. They're still my only investor up to this date. So they're kind of a silent partner, let me do what I want. And we've spun ShelfAware into a B2B software platform that we can license to any distributor in a B2B supply chain. And they can manage their own supply chains remotely anywhere in the world. So we have consumers coast to coast. We've licensed it to several distributors in different product verticals, but frankly, it could go anywhere, really any B2B supply chain. So we're looking at applications inside dental and vision and healthcare.
Yeah.
Yeah, we quoted a large one for healthcare clinics, tracking PPE on a clinic level. It's a practical solution. It's cheap. There's no upfront cost. We have it as a SaaS model, and it's been a wild ride. Really fun to work with different businesses.
It's really interesting. When you shared this concept with me a while back, a little while ago, I learned a little bit more about what you all were doing. It reminded me of an old commercial, an Amazon commercial. And it was their little stores. I think they call them
Mm-hmm.
Amazon Go or something like that. Where you'd go into this little store. It looked like a convenience store, is really what it was. And you'd pick up a bunch of stuff and you would walk out the door and you would check out. Basically, all of your items would be checked and build your
Yeah,
credit card and you walked out. So, I
yeah.
mean,
It was a convenience store with no cashier.
right.
Yeah, that was funny you bring that up because when we were through our beta, had launched it at our first consumer, and realized we were onto something, we had filed some patents. We have some patents on the system, on the hardware that we deploy at the consumer's location. We had just filed those patents, and that was the press release for Amazon Go, came out that same month. And
Interesting.
yeah, and there was a very cryptic press release from Amazon. Somebody had sent me a hyperlink to the news article in Forbes or something, and I read that concept and I thought, holy crap, like this is the same concept in a retail format.
Right. Right.
It uses a mix of technologies. They use some vision
Hmm.
systems that are really crazy cool. Probably, to put it simply, too high end of a system for a industrial application, but still really really cool. But yeah, that is the system in a nutshell. I mean, we're basically setting up intelligent convenience stores for consumers, usually in large, complex supply chain settings. And these convenience stores are basically just leveraging the consumer's existing pallet racks, shelving,
Hmm.
floor space, whatever. And the
Hmm.
packaging could be a bag or a box or a
Right.
crate or a tote. They're just affixed with these tiny little sensors. They cost pennies a piece, and we track them as they leave. We really don't care, who takes them. That's one big difference between retail and wholesale is it's just all built to that single consumer, on a factory level. So it's a little different, but it's more or less the same thing. Yeah, intelligent. Yeah, you can also think of it as like a vending machine without the machine. It's like
Yeah.
free form. There's no box around it in glass case. It's just you walk in, grab what you want. We'll know it's gone, and then we'll send you more.
Fascinating. I mean, this is when you shared this with me, I was like, man, this is really amazing. And I think as something that you had mentioned earlier, one of your early goals was to remove the route salesperson out of the mix,
Hmm.
and that really, God, that plays well into our current environment, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. We in the office jokingly call it a socially distanced VMI.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have a VMI that's virtual. I mean, you have nobody on site. You don't have to worry about. It's been fascinating during this turbulent period to watch factories. Nobody wants to be that factory that has an outbreak.
Right.
And now you're that factory that's shut down. And so factories immediately looked to all of their suppliers and said, like, hey, we got to limit people in the building from outside the organization. And from a shelfware perspective, we were like, well, that's cool. We don't care. Like, we're still here. We're still monitoring your inventory consumption on the daily in real time. We don't really need to be there. So it didn't really affect our operations, but it's been a good marketing boon for us. I mean, we've leveraged that term quite a bit and had some marketing campaigns around the idea of a socially distanced vendor managed inventory.
Yeah, I kind of see the concept very easily in an industrial application, where you have an OEM setting or something like that. But what about other industries? I mean, is there any, have you branched out away from industrial yet? Or can you envision other industries being able to, or other vertical markets and distribution being able to leverage this same type of technology?
Yeah, we have branched out a little bit. It's been tough, I'll be honest. Growing up in the industrial marketplace, it's given me such a focus on this marketplace. You take for
Yeah.
granted as a professional, like everybody in your contact book and everybody on LinkedIn is all industrial distribution. So you have to start to develop brand new contacts in completely different industries. But
Yeah.
the simple view of it is it's a technology that's applicable to any B2B, any business to business. It doesn't work as well in B2C because you have those other higher end considerations like, billing an individual's credit card. You have personal financial
Yeah.
data then
Yeah.
that you have to be very cognizant of. So it works best in B2B and it can go to any B2B space. And we have just started to look at applications inside vision, dental, and medical. But
Uh,
boy, I've got some great use cases in my head that
Sure.
I'd love to explore around on site locations like construction sites, job
Totally.
sites, where you could track a smart container full of inventory items and an industrial distributor could monitor that remotely. I mean, you could have a lumber camp in the Yukon and inside a smart container we already have cellularly connected scanners, so that's not a big deal. We can hook up to a AT&T, Verizon. If you go to Canada, it's like some first time I drove to Canada, it's like I hit Rogers cell network. I'm like, I'm on some
Yeah. Yeah.
dude's
I know
cell
Rogers. Yeah.
tower.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh, wait, the carrier is called Rogers.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Like,
Sure.
oh,
Yeah.
that was like some guy at a cabin named Roger with an antenna. I'm like, it's on a cell signal. But yeah, really the world's endless. It's just a matter of marketing and connections and then earning trust of professionals in other industries. They're earning their trust that they're going to take a chance on you as a third party innovator and deploy your system. So I guess just a matter of time and money until we can break into some new industries. I think it's wildly applicable. And I just need to do a better job of getting out there and mixing it up.
So, before I let you go, can you give me an idea? I mean, is this just for the bigger distributor from a cost or an investment standpoint? I mean, is this really for a larger entity, 25, $30 million distributor, or can somebody in that $5 to $8 million in revenue, could they leverage this technology as well?
Yeah, great question. It was built and deployed by a distributor that was 5 million in revenue. So it's definitely for the small guy. I mean, the big guys can do just as well with it. There's really no threshold. I mean, our platform as it stands today, your upfront cost as a distributor to get started dabbling with the system, your first deployment, it's going to cost you less than $10,000 all in labor, time, and equipment. And so for less than 10 grand, you can be up and running. I mean, if you're a distributor in Omaha, Nebraska, you can track an on hand VMI in New York City for less than 10 grand, and you could be live in less than a month. So the all in burden is really, really low. The threshold's really, really low. From a business standpoint, when we went towards the platform play, so we've created this environment that it can be licensed over and over again to different product verticals. What we're really going after is we're trying to link independent distributors up on a platform where this platform allows the independent distributor to stay hyper focused on the product verticals that they do best at. So forget being a general, broadly horizontal industrial distributor. Don't try and be the next Granger. Granger and Fastenal already have that market cornered. Forget it. Do what you do. So if you sell hose and fittings, sell hose and fittings. If you sell fasteners, sell fasteners. But you can get on this platform, technological platform, that allows you to offer the same services that the big guys offer as far as vending and strategic sourcing, supply chain management, and work with other independent suppliers to provide consumers with this one omni-channel feel to their business.
No, it's fascinating. I mean, I'm just kind of, my mind is, kind of spinning here, thinking, wow, where could you play with this thing? But ultimately, yeah, these just got so many different possibilities and opportunities here. Again, as we kind of wrap up here, how can someone get in touch with you if they want to learn more about this technology? Where do they call?
Right. Well, they could always get a hold of me. Simply, my email address is andrew@shelfwarevmi.com. I think the best resource for them, honestly, is just go to YouTube. We talked a lot about YouTube
Oh, yeah,
today.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
YouTube's amazing. Go to YouTube, type in ShelfAware. That's ShelfAware, all one word. We have a YouTube channel. We're big believers in video content. We put out all sorts of videos. You'll see me and my goofy face on factory floors all across America deploying shelfware for different types of users and consumers and talking about the supplier side of things. So I think YouTube shelfware is the best resource for you. My website's okay, but websites, oh, when we start on websites, websites are a pain, but YouTube's probably my best content.
Yeah.
My best content is on YouTube. So go there and then email me at andrew@shelfwarevmi.com, shelfwarevmi.com if they want to have something specific. And yeah, it can go anywhere, anybody, small guys. If you want to go take some swings at some big distributor, let's do it. That's where I really enjoy is just, I love wrecking things. I think when you get down to it, I just really, I, I love disruption. I love being the disruptor, and I really don't like being disrupted. So I'd love to go help somebody go disrupt some stuff.
Well, Andrew, it's been an absolute pleasure, learning about your system and learning about your journey. I think that's been kind of the most fascinating, really coming into this with very little background in, technology or formal technology training, to where you are today. I mean, that's just it's astounding. I mean, and I think you've really taken this quite some distance in a relatively short period of time. So, very
Yeah.
exciting journey.
Yeah, it should be encouraging that if I can do it, anybody can do it. That's the message I want people to
Yeah.
hear is if you want to innovate, innovate. Take a risk. You'll never learn anything unless you get your hands dirty, get in the trenches and do it yourself. And with the internet, with repositories like YouTube, there's really nothing you can't go do yourself and learn today that you'll benefit from tomorrow. So that would be, yeah, I hope people get inspired to just get out there and do things differently.
Well, on that note, my friend, let's close this bad boy up. Again, thank you so much for your time. This has been really fascinating.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me, Jason. And maybe we can do it again sometime.
Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, consider hitting that subscribe button. Links to sponsors, products, and services mentioned during this episode can be found in the show description area on your podcast application or at www.distributiontalk.com. Distribution Talk is edited and mixed by Andrea Klunder and Edwin Ruiz at the Creative Imposter Studios. This episode was brought to you by my company, The Distribution Team. We are a consulting services firm dedicated to helping wholesale distribution clients remove barriers to profitability, generate wealth, and achieve personal goals. To learn more about how we can help your company succeed, check us out at www.thedistributionteam.com.